Hey girls, so this is going to be your Chapter 3 test review. Your study guides are posted on class pages on your Chapter 3 page. I posted it a while ago, so hopefully you've looked at it by now. We're going to take a minute to just go through some of this stuff. A lot of it's stuff that you should hopefully be able to find on your own. This is I'm recording this weeks in advance, so I'm going to tell you that you can email me, but I don't know how quick I'll be able to respond. So if you have questions, ask your substitute, and she'll be able to help you. So this is the format of the test. It's going to be similar to your last one, but a little bit longer. So there's going to be 15 matching, 15 true false, 10 multiple choice, and then 2 short answers. Excuse me. And if you guys listen long enough, you'll get the short answer questions at the end. So these are the vocab. I'm hoping by now, because the last 2 tests has been formatted the same, that you guys know most of these are your vocab words. Some of them are words like the miraculous medal we didn't actually talk about, but it's in one of the sidebars. So just read that and you should be fine. I think that was the only one. So do your best to just be comfortable with these words and use them in a sentence. It won't be matching with the definition, but most of them will be using them in a sentence. These are the people you should know from this chapter. The one I would take the most time on is with Thomas Merton. He's not matching, but there's a couple of true-false questions about him. So be familiar with his story and why he was known to the church. The other 3 are matching. So you just kind of have to know the gist of them. So these ones I'm going to do kind of fast because honestly you should be able to find in your book on your own super easily. So this is the first one. What are the beliefs of this? If hypothetically speaking there was a multiple choice question on it, be able to answer it. Same with this one. Actually, I think that was a true false. The Inquisition is one of your vocab terms. So be familiar with it. Be able to, I think, answer a true-false question about it, about what this actually was. This one, I'm basically giving you the question, so know the answer. So we talked about a bunch of different Catholic vocations discussed in the book. An example would be priest, religious life, married life, single life, so on and so forth. Be able to list them. And these, be able to answer the question and you will be fine. So what is Mary's role in the church? What are her titles? We talked about a bunch of different titles. Her role and titles do kind of coincide with each other, so that'll help. What should a devotion to Mary look like? So what I'm looking for that one is a little bit more complicated, but basically anything that, like if we were to have a devotion to Mary that took away our focus from Jesus, it's not what our devotion should look like. Our devotion should bring us to Jesus. Yeah, and that's basically what you need to know for the test. Different forms of consecrated life we discussed, and they're in your book, so look them up. So some of the, not more complicated, but ones that are, I don't know, you should know these too. So where does holiness come from for us as individuals? So there should be a question mark in between individuals and holiness. Sorry, there is not. But holiness is a gift from God. It is not based on our own merit. You guys should know that by now. What is holiness? Where does holiness in the church come from? It does not come from members, it comes from God. So when we think about the church being holy, we're not thinking the church is holy because of all the super holy members. No. We know the church is holy because of Jesus Christ himself. After martyrdom was diminished, how did the church recognize holiness? So we talked about this too. In the early church, most people who had faith ended up being killed for their faith. But once Christianity became legal, there were different ways to recognize holiness, and it was through prayer, self-denial, and virtuous lives. St. Francis de Sales' perspective on the universal call to holiness. Ultimately, what I'm looking for is that everyone had a vocation to holiness. That's all you need to know. Baptism. So baptism, you take a share in what? When you are baptized, you automatically kind of have take on a share in the Paschal mystery. So basically what that means is that you have become a part of God's mission and a part of His church, a part of His life, a part of His grace. And so you've ultimately entered into relationship with God. What is a Christian's role in the common priesthood? So your book goes much more in depth to this. So if you don't really understand the difference between common priesthood and ministerial priesthood, do read up on this. But what you need to know is that we all have a role in Christ's saving work. Our role as common priests is different than a ministerial priest. So in order for somebody to be canonized a saint, there's an investigation. The investigation looks at their life, looks at their decision making, their history, what ultimately made them holy, and assured their straight entrance into heaven. And through that investigation, they have to find miracles attributed to them. Once they've passed that process, they are beatified and eventually canonized. So when they're beatified, they're called blessed, and then usually it's several years down the road when the investigation and everything is official that they get canonized, and then they are called a saint. So be familiar and comfortable with that. There are some true-false. I think it's just some true-false questions on that one. So Jesus' sacrifice. This is what you need to know. Know these three things. Jesus offered himself freely. He was the priest as well as the sacrifice. His self-offering made the further sacrifice of animals in the temple unnecessary. So we can talk about Jesus' sacrifice in a lot of different ways. Just be familiar with these three things, and you will be fine. This is actually a really cool story. So I want you guys to read your books, page 95, and answer these two questions. How long were the Chilean miners trapped underground, and how did they practice their faith? So they could do all sorts of things as far as practicing their faith. There was one thing they could not do. Remember what that is. And then, you lucky ducks, because I like you and because I don't want you to be too overwhelmed by this test, these are your two short answer questions. So read through them. They're pretty straightforward. So hopefully you can answer them yourselves. I'm not going to give you the answers I'm looking for because I don't want everybody to write the exact same thing. So read through them, be comfortable with them, and be prepared for your test. Do your best. St. Joseph Cupertino, pray for us. Good luck, ladies. I hope you all are doing well.